Well, hello. That's me again, and I'm after some teeth procedure, and I'm feeling much better now that I can talk at least. So, and today I want to talk a little bit about this and that, so to speak. And I will start with what many people discuss now. And again, if you want to really get the feeling or the sense of what is going on with, for example, situation in Lithuania and essentially NATO, well, United States really trying to blockade Kaliningrad area. Obviously, both Alex and Alexander from Duran, those Duran guys make excellent, points when they discuss this issue. But let me start with the thing for people who really want Russians to just break through, and it will be very easy to basically defeat anything, whatever is in Lithuania, and create the corridor to Kaliningrad Oblast in Russia. But Russians are not that stupid, and obviously the American plans, so to speak, and it is the United States which is behind this provocation with trying to blockade Kaliningrad Oblast, is obviously to somehow unleash the purely European war in such a way that the United States stays outside of this conflict, and eventually once Russia evaporates basically the military capability of the Europe and destroys some things, the United States steps in and kind of repeats the World War II thing. When basically, if you read my first book, I describe it in detail in what shape United States was in 1940, which was a disaster, basically, and it was the second recession, so-called, but which in reality was another depression. And then suddenly this miracle of war happens, and the United States, just, oh, here we are, and we know what happened after that. So my first book is pretty much dedicated to it, and you can easily buy it and read what was this all about. United States never experienced a real war, and modern American generals never fought a real war, and that is why they think that, yeah, that's possible. Obviously, they don't understand that in case of real war, even without, if to imagine this, which is really kind of difficult to imagine, but still, in the case of the escalation, Russia can rearrange stones even purely by conventional weapons in Washington, D.C. or elsewhere in the United States. But then again, that's my point, which I'm making for many years now, that the United States is not governable, really. And right now you have this completely destroyed government structure, and you have the several ideologue factions fighting in White House for influence. One of them are fanatical neocons, people who do not understand what real war is, but they want a war. And of course, we have more or less realistic people. They're still crazy and they're still ignorant, but at least they understand that what it might lead to. So, and that's what you have basically. And that's why this provocation with Lithuania was organized by the United States, and it's not even European Union actually. And so in this particular case, what Russia gonna do? Can Russia do it militarily? Yes. Again, make no mistake, I'm also on record constantly stressing it that Russia is using a very small fraction of its forces in Ukraine, and even that, it's basically won the war already. It's just a matter of mopping up what's left of the Ukrainian forces. I will be talking about this later in this video. But for now, instead of creating this desirable outcome for the United States, or they think that it is desirable, they don't understand issues of warfare, modern warfare. But here it is. If you look attentively at this thing, as you can see yourself, it's the ferry which was built, it's fully designed in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and it's a 12,000 deadweight metric tons ferry, which will be navigating Ust-Luga, it's in Leningrad Oblast, to Kaliningrad, to basically Baltisk, and it's a Baltic ferry, and it's capable to transport very much or very many loads, ranging from especially most importantly, it's a railroad ferry or rail car ferry. It also can transport, obviously, the trucks and cars. So it's the first one. The second one, same sister ship, Marshal Chernyakhovsky, is Marshal Rokossovsky. The Marshal Chernyakhovsky is already, I believe, like few days ago, it's already starting the trials, sea trials. So that will be the second ferry of this size, and it's very large size. So Russia will have no problems to provide the lifeline, not just lifelines, provide all necessary supplies by sea. And obviously, if somebody thinks that they can somehow, if it comes down to it, there are many fanatical and mad people in Washington. So if they think that they can try to intersect those lines of communications, well, there is a Baltic fleet there, Russian Baltic fleet, and there's a lot of weapons along the shoreline. So to make sure that any force will be sunk, and if it comes down to it, I don't think so. It should come down to it, but again, we don't know what is going on in Washington, D.C., and who really runs anything there. Certainly not Joe Biden. And that brings us to, when we talk about this supply lines, that brings us to this conclusion that at this stage Russia doesn't need to do much in terms of supplying Kaliningrad and in terms of maintaining their very substantial military grouping there. So it's not going to happen the way that Washington wants, and that means obviously Russia attacks the NATO member. However, it's not really a member. All Baltic states are not really states. They are statelets, and they are basically lapdogs of Washington, and that was the whole idea of Washington, to create this belt of the Eastern Europeans who hate Russia, be them Poles, be them obviously Baltic states, or others who just want to completely insulate Russia from the Western Europe, because that was the plan. But obviously the plan is extremely primitive. United States people who run the United States, they are not very smart. They're pretty primitive in their planning, and that is why each time something happens, they're like always faced with the reality which is radically against their plans, and then United States defeats itself. So, but that's one thing I needed to talk about. So I don't expect any military action, at least not that fast, regarding the Kaliningrad issue. But if need be, Russia can certainly do whatever she needs to do. And again, she has enough forces to basically break through there and, just make the corridor from Russia to Kaliningrad. That's one of the things I needed to mention today, but let's continue and let's go on the other things. Among many interesting news, obviously, is this. There was, as you know, Ukrainian propaganda loves to describe Russians as animals and subhumans, and that's pretty much the point of view taken by Western elites. They view Russians as the Untermensch, and the favorite shtick is, of course, rape. As you can see yourself, it's like akin to being thrown out of Gestapo for being too cruel. This is the same situation with this ombudsman or ombudswoman, Denisova in Ukraine, who created so much BS about Russians raping Ukrainian women that even Ukrainians couldn't take this anymore. And as you can see yourself, obviously, overwhelming majority of the cases what she was talking about, raping and sexual harassment, were totally made up by her daughter, and it was presented as the documents. And so when your Kiev regime, which looks at Russians as the subhumans, throws you out because for the lies you created just describing Russians raping left and right, I mean, that tells you something. But again, you have to understand, this is nothing new. The favorite shtick of the Western historiography is, of course, the fact that Red Army raped, for example, 2.5 million German women. This crap was propagated by the so-called historian, I believe he is Lieutenant Colonel of British Army, Anthony Beevor. So, as any Western historians, Anthony Beaver is not really a historian. He writes bullshit and propaganda, and he made the conclusion that Red Army raped 2.5 million German women based on the extrapolation of a single log of the Charité or charity clinic in Berlin in 1945. So he didn't even bother. I'm not sure that he really knows mathematics that well, and obviously not statistics. I heard he is the graduate of the Sandhurst, but then again, Sandhurst provided so much bullshit as of lately, and so many clowns speaking on the issues of the warfare that they probably best for them is to, not to kind of smear the once proud name and just simply dissolve themselves, because it's ridiculous. I mean, if you thought American generals who speak on the mainstream media are ridiculous, British ones are even, oh my God. So I don't want to go there. But the point is that Anthony Beaver, just created this legend, mythology, that Red Army raped 2.5 million German women. Why Red Army didn't rape 10 million German women, nobody knows. But of course the truth is there were rapes and there were things of this nature as any war, and especially after the Soviet people, Red Army, basically liberated actually Germany, and when they saw what Germany did to their own land and to their own people, and they were seeing this from 1941. There are no doubt about that there were issues related to robbery, there were issues related to the revenge, and there were a lot of things of this nature. But, and here's the problem. Well, actually, as I already stated, Anthony Beaver is not historian, neither is his late teacher, so to speak, Professor Mr. John Keegan, who was known Russophobe to the core. And so, as you might understand, nothing good came out of it. Yeah, we got Anthony Beaver, who passes for military historian. In reality, the guy has no clue what he's writing about. And I want to show you something which is very important. This is the Great Patriotic War archives in Russian by the Russian Historical Society, which actually provides an incredible insight into the Great Patriotic War, and all necessary available archive documents are pressed there, printed there, or actually provided for the internet review. And you can see there, when you look at that in reality, by the command of, let's say, First Belarusian Front of, Ukrainian, First Ukrainian Front, people who really occupied and patrolled the Berlin, obviously Berlin and Germany, the Soviet sector in Germany, there any types of the assault on German people. And there was a special directive of the commanding office and the staffs of those France army groups, which explicitly forbade, based on the Stalin's directive, to conduct any kind of revenge, robbery, let alone rape against German people and German women especially. And from what I know, there was 800 Red Army servicemen, from officers to soldiers, who have been executed publicly in front for raping. So we're looking at 800 people, and there were some obviously cases of raping, but nothing like 2.5 million or even 250,000 German women. But it was the very popular and still is popular myth that Red Army raped its way into the Germany. Obviously, the fact that there is a literature, there are still some honest historians in the West who provided also the narrative of how Allied forces, namely American and British and others, raped German women, pillaged them and robbed them. But of course, they were doing this out of democratic reasons, so it's all good. And in this particular case, that's what I'm trying to convey, that basically pretty much all history of the World War II, especially concerning the Eastern Front, with the exception of few people of the scale of David Glantz and Jonathan House and very few others, it's a complete baloney and propaganda, and it has to be simply thrown out. But, you know, for some people of the Western values and crypto-Nazis, obviously the idea that Russians or Red Army raped all those Untermensch, raped 2.5 million, you know, those superior race German women, which of course is complete baloney, it really warms them up, you know, they really want to believe it because, you know, that basically reinforces their traditional view, including not only in Western Europe, it's very popular in the United States that Russians are Untermensch and would do anything. So when they say that, yeah, Russians barbarically bombed Kiev, actually the bridge there, so obviously they, Russians barbarically blowing out the military-industrial infrastructure is barbarism, but of course NATO bombing Belgrade, for example, or erasing Fallujah from the face of the earth, it's fine because it's all democratic and it's all good, you know. So then you see yourself, it's not even hypocrisy anymore, it's just complete madness, and I do not want to find any more chunks about it because, as I already stated, there is nobody to talk to in the United States or in the Western Europe. Western Europe is not even subject of the foreign policy. Most of Germany, France, or Italy, what have you, they are not real states anymore. They don't have their own foreign policy, they don't follow their own interests, and in this particular case, they are really not states per se. They are conglomerates or enclaves, if you wish, of the some ethnic groups which have been are being obviously dissolved by the absolutely incredibly stupid and criminal immigration, and in this particular case they are just merely lapdogs. The United States orders the music, so to speak, there, so in this particular case, who do you talk to? Nobody. So there you go. But so the reason I mentioned this rape and their documents and archived documents which give a clear understanding how severely Soviet Red Army commander was dealing with the rape and pillage and robbery of this in Germany, it just gives a good example of how fake pretty much most, not all, most Western historiography about the Eastern Front is. And of course, as you can see yourself, yeah, Denisova and the way she was fired, and of course most of what she spoke about, how Russians rape Ukrainian women, is just absolutely true, but also whatever works for the powers that be in Washington D.C., as long as it, you know, smears Russians as I already stated, Untermensch, subhumans, as James Clapper thinks, and many in Democratic Party and the Republican one think that Russians are inferior race, and that's what it is. This is all part of and parcel of the whole like operation, and that's what they love to talk about. So, and in this particular case, apart from the documents which have been provided by the Russian Historical Society, Russian government few years ago, absolutely correctly, I supported absolutely fully, after opening them for almost 30 years, closed those archives for Western, so to speak, academics. It's about freaking time, because they go in and they cherry pick the documents and begin to write the history, which is not really history, but propaganda. And I agree completely, they shouldn't have the access anymore to Russian documents. And hey, they are the ones who proposing to cancel Russia fully as a culture. So I think so, if they want to withdraw music by Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky, they should also give up the Sikorsky helicopters and things of this nature, because it's all Russian, you know, so, and Russians should be cancelled. I don't know. So how can I else describe this? Because those people are not normal people anymore. They are definitely mad, and one of the reasons they are mad, and increasingly mad, because obviously their plans being destroyed all over the place, both militarily and economically. And obviously you heard already those news that they want to forbid gold imports from Russia for the West. Okay, that's fine. I mean, and whatever they want. There are many takers, believe me. So the same as this fake Russian default. So And people ask, and what is going to do to Russia? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's not the fault. Russia pays it. Russia pays its obligations, but she pays it in rubles. And of course, against the background of the BRICS session a few days ago, when it was announced that the new reserve currency is being worked out, yeah, I mean, you can understand the desperation of those people, and especially those so-called American and British economists from Financial Times or Wall Street Journal or whatever, people who have no clue about real economy and who only have degrees in the finances. That's what they understand. They understand speculation, modern monetary theory, but they do not understand how real economy works, and they will never understand. They are just, because that's how bad the Western education, especially in economic sense, is. It's horrendous. So, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this respect. And now we can go back to a friend of mine, Larry Johnson, whose excellent blog, A Son of the New American Revolution, and he writes some outstanding things there. And the latest by Larry, it was yesterday, it's called Understanding the New York Times article on the CIA in Ukraine. And he writes about that basically all kinds of assumption about the fact that CIA is not there is, of course, complete bullshit. It was there from the get-go in Ukraine. And not only there, the Pentagon, DIA, you know, a bunch of the agencies, including from not only the United States and Great Britain, but they're still there. They're still there on the ground. But here's the problem. The fact is that even CIA people and higher ups in the national security establishment in the United States, especially through the New York Times, they admit now that basically, you know what, we don't work there anymore because the training which we provided, all those training troops, they were training those troops and they thought that they are the best, have been basically annihilated. And they don't want to continue to do this. They're still there, but at least they claim that they don't want to do this, is because obviously if Russia escalates, and Russia can escalate if need be, then it's not worth their efforts and things of this nature. Just let it stay, you know, the way it is. And obviously it's not going to help Ukraine. And this is what Larry finishes his piece with this excellent phrase. Got that? The most acute problem is that the best Ukrainian troops are dead, wounded or captured. There are no first-rate troops left to train. Oh my, that is the problem. And the United States is not going to put any of our troops into harm's way. That's it. That is, for now, the Biden administration's policy. Putting modern special operations teams on the ground to train Ukrainians is, per the New York Times piece, too great a risk and carries a price that is not worth the outcome. It also not worth the outcome in a sense that, I mean, at this particular case, even the what VSU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, experienced, and those who left, I mean, out of competent people there, they can teach CIA how to fight, because obviously, as I already stated, they are not there, CIA, DIA, Pentagon, to just train. Again, it's really funny. Train for what? And because the United States never fought anything like this in its modern history, but obviously they are there to learn and study Russian ways of war. And again, they're not going to learn much because, again, there is a reason why the special military operation is not called a war. But I'm not going to be delving into this right now. And speaking about it, we will kind of leave it for a later broadcast, later videos. But so now, the last piece of news, which is, of course, that White House administration, Washington, saying that, yeah, we're kind of doing the plans and the Ukraine should receive their long-range and short-range air defense systems soon. I doubt it will be Patriots. The talk now is pretty much about the Dutch air defense system. It's not really long range. Its maximum range is 25 kilometers or 35, I don't remember. It makes no difference whatsoever. They will be annihilated. And it's going to be yet another exposition of the total technological and tactical inadequacy for military hardware which NATO has, and I don't think so United States wants to introduce THAAD or Patriot to the Ukrainian theater of operations, because they will be annihilated. THAAD, or let alone Patriot 3, they cannot intercept anything like Onyx or Iskander. So good luck trying to provide Ukraine with that. So, but they still kind of trying to save the face, but evidently, judging by all signs are there, including the Lithuania situation, is they are desperate because, again, as I stated, the war is over. And this was not even the war, special military operations. Ukraine sustained catastrophic losses, and following famous Clausewitz dictum that the main objective of war is to compel the enemy to do our will is pretty there. And you know why? Because obviously now, including through the mouth, so to speak, of State Department and even White House about the possibility of Ukraine negotiating anything, Mr. Lavrov, was a couple days or 3 days ago on record saying we're not interested in negotiations anymore. They are frozen, and that's exactly what it is. So this is what I wanted to leave you with today. And as always, those who like my channel, please subscribe. And those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon, and I will be talking to you guys later. Thank you very much for your attention. Bye-bye.